All right. Hi, everybody. Isaiah Colton here with REP Success Systems. And today we are doing our online workshop. And I'm really excited about today's topic around what I call geo-farming secrets. And it's all about geographical farming. And I think this is really important in 2020 because of where the marketplace is. And essentially, if your goal is to get more listings and find more creative ways to do it, and do it in a way that's cost effective and in a way that can produce meaningful results in a quick period of time, then you want to make sure you tune in to this masterclass and this mastermind call that we're having here today. And to help me facilitate this conversation and walk through this workshop, I actually have BeattyCarmichael here, and I also have Tyler. How do you pronounce the last name? It's
Steenken. Yep.
Steenken. I want to make sure I got it right. Thanks, Tyler.
Tyler, that is a really stinking name. You know
that?
It is what it is, right?
Yeah, cool. Awesome. And I'm really excited to have these two guys because the amount of expertise that they have when it comes to geographical farming, I mean, many, many years, and so much trial and error, so much real life in the trenches data from their clients, testing, going back and forth, tweaking to really master the art and science of geofarming. And so, Beatty, why don't you just give 30 seconds on your background, and then Tyler, after he's done, give 30 seconds on your involvement, your background, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay, sure. So, hey everyone. So I've been in this field of marketing for 22 plus years and driving sales from consumers. In 2012, started working specifically with real estate agents in geographic farming. And it was not uncommon for our clients in their first year to earn as much as $100,000 in sales from just that geographic farming. We've tested over 43 different split marketing tests to understand what works best.
Wow.
We've continued to improve on our product, which has gone through probably 23 or 27 revisions as we continue to tweak and find what works best and continue to push the envelope. And our focus today with Agent Dominator is really just helping clients take that list of names, whether geo or personal, and start to touch it in a way that it drives a lot of sales back to them.
Awesome. That's great. You said 43 different tests marketing tests to get to the point, and primarily Postcards is your focus, correct, when it comes to marketing?
That's correct. All the testing and everything we've done has been Postcards. And I remember a comment someone said, and it's so true. If you don't track it, it's not marketing. So everything we've done, we track, we measure, we change, and we track again and see if we can beat what we did last time.
How powerful is that? That's awesome.
Powerful.
Awesome. And how about you, Tyler?
Yeah, I'm with Cole. I've been with Cole Realty Resource Cole Information for the last 15 years. Our company's been around for 7 decades, actually, 70 years. And so we provide cell phone numbers and email addresses for everybody within a farm or a zip code. So we're the data behind the scenes, right? So during the 15 years that I've been here, I support our partners, so great partners like you guys, Isaiah, and then also lots of different coaching companies. So I'm actually in San Diego right now.
Oh, cool.
At a huge Mike Ferry event, right? So there's 4,000 people downstairs, learning about growing their business. And I'd say about half of those clients, half of those agents, 2,000 of them use Cole today, right? Because a lot of the major coaching companies out there are all about being proactive, going out there and introducing yourself. And that's why this is such a great fit working with you guys, Isaiah. So super excited to talk with you guys today.
Awesome. Awesome. Just so everyone knows what the goal is here is for you to leave this workshop with a step-by-step process to really be able to go execute a sales and marketing plan to dominate the geo-farming niche, the geographical farming niche. So that's the goal, is for us to get through this workshop to be able to have a step-by-step process to be able to do that, but also to provide you resources and services as you're kind of going along this journey of mastering the art and science of geographical farming. You're going to need certain services, and to provide you resources and services to be able to achieve your goal and make sure you can maximize your profits and mitigate your risks along the way. So we're going to go ahead and kind of jump in and get started with that process. My name is Isaiah Colton. I'm the founder of REP Success Systems, where my role in this whole thing is we consider ourselves the lead conversion experts. So what we do is we focus on providing systems, tools, strategies, and sales and marketing techniques to increase your lead conversion. Our conviction is that it's easy to generate a lead nowadays, or easier to generate a lead now, much harder to convert it. And the industry, we owe the industry more techniques and strategies and tools to convert leads. That's what we owe the industry. And it's interesting because when we're talking to most agents will say, I need more leads, right? I need more leads. But what I would submit to you is, if you look at your business plan for 2020, is to say, yes, you need leads. But more importantly, you have to have a really effective plan and have the ability to execute that plan to make sure you convert leads. And let's face it, if leads aren't converting, guys, are we in business? Right? We're not in business. And so that's one of the things I just really want you guys to focus on, get out of this, is the strategies that you can take away to actually develop a plan, but more importantly, convert leads into sales. So Beatty, let's start off by an overview. Where does somebody start with this whole process of geo-farming?
Most important thing is choosing where you're going to farm. As we talked on a previous call, Isaiah, geographic farming is nothing more than an investment in your business. And if you're going to make an investment, you got to take the time to research it to know what works best. And there are a number of things that you can do. And Isaiah, let me ask you, how detailed do you want me to get in picking the farm? Do we want to go kind of drill really specific to?
Yeah, I want our viewers to be able to walk away and say, if I was to use Cole Realty as an example, or use my company through Cole to help coordinate this, to say, and I want them to know exactly what to do. Yep.
Okay, so there's a lot of work that comes before Cole comes in, and that's your research. There's actually 6 or 7 things, if you want to pick the absolute best area to do geographic farming, that you need to do. So you can either have your assistant do it yourself. A lot of times, if you have enough weight with your title company, they'll do it for you because they appreciate all your business, okay? But there's a lot of some data. So the first thing you want to do is you want to look at the pockets in your area where homes are selling, and carve each one out in what we'll call just a farm. A farm is just a neighborhood of some sort. And the first thing you want to do is you want to look at turnover rates, okay? Turnover is the first, but not the only thing you want to analyze. Turnover rate by itself is meaningless. If I have a farm that turns over at 5% and I have a farm that turns over at 3%, which one is best? I don't have enough data to tell. Most people say go with the 5%. But what if the 5% is an average sales price of $100,000 with 6 months days on market, and the 3% is an average sales price of $500,000 with 30 days on market? Now with a little bit more data, you can go, well, I don't want that 5%, I want the 3%. So the question is, how do you start to analyze this in such a way that you can compare apples to apples and know specifically where you need to be targeting? So the first step is turnover rate. If you're not familiar with what turnover rate is, it's real simple. It's the number of sales in the last 12 months divided by the number of homes. Okay, so it's just a mathematical formula. In real simple terms, if I have a farm of 300 homes and there were 30 sales that went on, then that's 30 divided by 300, or that's a 10% turnover rate. The next thing you do, once you identify those areas that seem to be where you want to target, that they seem to have a decent turnover rate, the next thing you want to do is apply the average sales price. Look in each of those farms and say, what is the average sales price going on? And then you multiply the turnover rate times the average sales price. This is real important because this is the only way you can start to compare apples to apples. When you take the average sales price, let's say the average sales price is 10%, okay? And the turnover rate is 10%, and the average sales price is $300,000. Then that gives you what I'll call a sales turnover metric of $30,000. Okay, that's 10% times 300,000. So now we have the actual economic value of what's being produced in that farm. Then you take your other farms and you multiply that same turnover rate times average sales price. And now you can put everything on a metric that is exactly apples to apples. It takes into consideration all the variances of turnover and sales price and help you understand what's really going on. So if we went back to our example just a moment ago, 5% turnover rate at $100,000, that is, I think, what's 5% times 100,000, $5,000, okay? And then if you have 3% at 500,000, that's $15,000. So right off the bat, you can see that 3% turnover rate at a 500,000 average sales price is 3 times more economically viable than the 5% turnover. Does that make sense, Isaiah?
Yeah, it does. It's, giving an example, we have a suburb in Irondequoit where it has a little bit less turnover, but it's a higher price point. So we choose to do our geo-farming in that compared to Webster, which has a little bit more turnover, but the price point is a lot lower. And so we choose to focus more on Irondequoit, and they're really close. They're kind of close to each other. But we've actually done that test before and made that mistake of actually going into Webster thinking we were going to get the better results. And that's why we changed to Irondequoit, because of what you're talking about. Real life example there for our brokerage. Yeah.
I remember talking to one of our clients who, we have very few clients in my city of Birmingham, most of them are all over the country.
Yeah.
But this one was actually here, so I knew the areas that she was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And she said she wanted to do geographic farming, and she picked this area we call over the mountain, or right on the other side of the mountain. And I said, well, why do you want to pick that? And she said, well, that's where I live. That's near my office, and I thought that'd be a nice place to focus. I said, well, do you want to target where you want to focus, or do you want to target where you'll make the most money? What do you think she said?
Most money, right?
Most money. I said, okay,
I would hope so. Or else she needs to get out of real estate, right? If she didn't.
Right. She won't last long if she focuses only where she wants to.
Yeah.
So what I did is I walked her through this whole process, and then she came back a week later and said, I want to pick this other area. It's like 5 miles away. Okay. And it's a much better area. So those are the first two things. You want to take your average turnover rate, average sales price, multiply them together. That gives you this apples to apples comparison now to rank all of the GeoFarm areas that you're looking at. But that's not all of it. So let's say that you have two that rank very close. One is an average days on market of 6 months, and the other is an average days on market of 1 month. Which one would you prefer, Isaiah?
So average days in the market with 1 month versus what?
Versus 6 months. 180 days.
Yeah, obviously a 1 month, right?
Yeah. So this is an investment. You want to cash out as quickly as possible. Okay.
Yeah.
So now the days on market helps you start to eliminate other farms that are not as profitable. Okay. But then that's not all of it, because let's say that you're now looking at, you got 2 farms and everything seems to be pretty good. One farm, you look at what I call agent dominance. And agent dominance is where you look at the number 1 and the number 2 selling listing agents and what percentage of the sales that they had. So if one farm has a agent dominance, one agent that does 30% of all the listings, and another one, their top agent only does 5. Well, you can either compete against the person who is well entrenched, or you can go where there's no competition.
Yeah.
And I found it's a lot easier to compete when there's no one you have to really compete against. So you look at agent dominance. Then there's another thing that you start to look at, and I call it the success rate. This is actually a simple analysis. It's the number of listings versus the number of sales. So let me see if this makes sense. If in a particular farm, there were 100 listings and only 30 sales, and another farm that had all the similar dynamics, except there were 35 listings and 30 sales, which one would you want to pick?
Yeah, I hear you on that, for sure.
So you want to pick the one that has the best. And then this is the last thing. And this is where I think a lot of people don't do, but it can make a real impact. And that is what I call the trend rate. Okay.
Trend rate. Okay.
If you take the turnover rate, you can just look at turnover initially. and look at it in the previous 2 and 3 years back. If that turnover rate is going down,
Right.
then if you pick that farm, you're going to invest in an area that has decreasing returns. But if that trend rate is going up, then you're going to invest in a farm that the trend is going up. So you take all that together, and now that gives you where you want to target. And once you know where you want to target, then that's when you go to cull, and you can then start to get the list that you want to target.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I want to make a note, Clara, too, is I want to come up with an actual spreadsheet where we can, or like a calculator, where somebody can factor all these different things. It's probably out there, but I want to make one where we factor all the things that Beatty just went over. So that way a person can go in and plug this and come up with some sort of probability or success rate, or find a way to identify what the potential success rate is based on all these different factors. See if we can build our tech team could build something like that on a side note.
Yeah, it should be pretty easy. And as you do that for your clients, the absolute most important thing is the sales turnover metric.
Mm-hmm.
That drives everything.
Right.
Everything else starts to be splitting hairs unless you come to something that is just real abnormal.
Right. Tyler, I know Cole does some of this, right? Could you speak to what Cole can do here, what Cole can't do?
Yeah, I mean, so great. I'm digesting all that stuff. Good stuff, Beatty. I mean, what will allow you to do then is to map out that neighborhood, so you could actually go in, and if you find the farm that we're talking about, whether it's Edenton South neighborhood, you can go into our system, map it out real time with pinpoints, or do a radius around a specific address, and here's the 800 people that live in Edenton South neighborhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not only just get their addresses, but you actually get their name, their cell phone numbers were available, their email addresses were available, landlines, and then all these other data attributes to overlay on top of it, like length of residence, age of each person, their income levels, what vehicles they drive, to basically kind of build a profile about everybody. And so, and again, we'll talk in the next steps on how to contact people, but we say is, okay, you don't want to say, hey, happy birthday, you're about to turn 70, but you obviously might have a different message for somebody who's 70, to downsize, move into a retirement home, for somebody who's 40, who might be looking, having kids and moving up to needing a bigger house because their kids are getting bigger, right? So that's where we play. So,
Awesome.
The only thing I would add to that as well is that farm accessible? So meaning, is there a way that you also can be visible in that neighborhood? So whether, do they have a neighborhood park? So if you wanted to do a community event, could you hold an event in that community park? Is there a Scooter's Coffee House nearby that you can wear your name tag and be seen at the coffee house? It would just be my other little check.
Yeah, one other small thing too, and what we'll do is we'll provide a whole checklist here for our viewers. But some areas have restrictions on open houses, or like open house signs. And from a branding standpoint, that could really hurt somebody if they're trying to build a brand in that marketplace. So it's one thing. Actually, Mike Hellickson through Club Wealth, he talks a little bit about that, because if you have a strategic open house strategy and you want to go in there and hold multiple open houses over time, something to factor in as well too. So
on that too is some places don't allow like door knocking as well.
Right.
They don't allow signage. So these are those other factors that once you start to pinpoint those farms that have the best sales turnover metric, then these become the deciding factors that you choose what works best for you and the strategy you want to implement. Right,
because if statistically, for us, and what you talked about last time we talked, Beatty, is that if you have, let's say you're doing a postcard campaign, and we'll get a little bit more into this too, or you're using our robot Ren, what we call Ren, who has the artificial intelligence to rank these leads based on behaviors of who's most likely to be selling. And statistically, door knocking increases the conversion dramatically. You can't door knock in that neighborhood on a hot lead, right? That could be a deciding factor, I think, is what you're saying, right? So
definitely.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so let's go on and let's talk about you talk about selecting a mailing list. Did we cover any of that here? Or you want to drill down into that?
Yeah,
Okay.
so I think this is real important because if you look at marketing as a whole, there are three primary ingredients that drive results. About 40% of what drives results is the list that you target. If you target a wrong list, nothing else matters. About 40% of your results is driven by the offer that you make. What is it that you're actually telling them that persuades them to want to choose you? And then 20% is how you say it. So selecting the list is really one of the most important things. And there are a lot of things that you can do. And there's not one way that is better. It really depends on your process, how you want to approach the follow-up, and your long-term approach. So let me see if I can give you a couple things. As you see on the screen, one way is the entire list. So the way that works is I have a farm, let's say, of 600 homes. I'm going to get all 600 homes, and I'm going to market on a consistent basis to all 600 homes. Now, this can be advantageous if you're going to do some of the things like what Tyler mentioned. You're going to actually invest your time into the community. You're going to have community events coming to a local park, okay? Then you want high concentration. If your signage is going to be out, you want a high concentration of all your signs so that everyone getting your postcards, they're also the ones seeing your signs, they're coming to the park. Maybe you're doing door knocking. And you become the long-term in that farm, you want to own that farm. So that's when you would want to go with the entire list. Then a second way is you can take that list and what I call split it with a wedge. This is where Cole's information is going to be real helpful. You can look at the data in broad bands, okay? Your title company can help with this as well. You can look and see out of these 600 homes, what price band, if there's a wide range of price banding in there, what price bands are selling the most? Maybe you find that 2/3 of all of the homes are in a band of only 200 homes, okay? So now you can narrow your focus in that farm, pick up several other farms with that same pricing strategy, and you can pinpoint more specifically those homes that are having the highest turnover within the larger format as a whole. This advantage means that you'll probably get more sales quicker, but you may not build up as much of a long-term presence in one spot. Okay, so that's part of your plus and minus. Another way you can select a list is data analytics. And this is where you take a wider look at the entire area, maybe look at 2,000 or 3,000 homes, and then narrow it down based on data to which ones are most likely to be selling. Data analytics will help you get sales faster, okay? But the challenge with data analytics, depending on your approach, is you can't effectively go door knock because there are, one home here and one home there and one home over here. You won't get as much traction on your signage. You won't get as much traction if you're going to invite people to a neighborhood park. So it's a plus and minus depending on what you want. And the last thing, and I thought this was real interesting. I came up with this top producing agent down in Marco Island, Florida. His name is Ken, and he sells. So this is a second home market. Okay, average sales price $750,000 to $1 million, and there's not that many homes, but the challenge with him is he was competing against a lot of well-entrenched agents. And the question is, how do you do geographic farming in a second home market type of environment?
Yeah.
And so here's what we kind of came up with. Some of those agents are really good in follow-through. And those that are really good in follow-through, staying in touch with their past clients, Ken is not likely going to pick up a sale when that client wants to sell their home. So I suggested this. And Cole, I don't know, Tyler, I don't know if Cole can provide this data, but what we came up with is look at the homes that were purchased like 12 years ago up to maybe 5 years ago, and look at which agent was the buyer's agent who actually had that client. And any of those buyer's agents that were the good agents that do good follow-up, discard. But any of those that were just little part-time agents that they're not following up, that becomes your list. And now you can target very specifically your own historical data to make sure that you're targeting those people that you're likely to have zero competition on and trying to persuade them to choose you when they want to sell.
That's interesting. Well, I don't think I've heard that angle before. That's really interesting. I think it's important factor.
It takes more work, but again, when you do your research up front, as a friend of mine says, measure twice, cut once.
Yeah.
If you spend the time up front doing it right, you'll make a lot of money from then on.
Yeah, it's funny because I think if we're probably being honest about it, if we look at why geo-farming doesn't work, this is one of the biggest reasons, right? Is we haven't taken the time and the research up front to actually put a business plan together. This is what you're talking about. You're actually you're talking about putting a marketing and business plan together. And if this isn't done the right way, it's definitely one of the top mistakes that I see when somebody's, let's get some postcards. And then maybe they look at some of it, right? They'll look at a few things on the surface, and then they start sending out postcards, and 3 months later, they're like, what's going on, right? So,
the biggest problem with similar to that, there's a great book, if you haven't read it, I'd like to encourage you, it's called Rhinoceros Success, and I think it's by John Alexander or something like that.
Okay.
But the whole idea is this: most people follow the cattle. Whatever everyone else is doing, that's what they do.
Right.
And if you want to have great success, you become that rhinoceros that you look and see what everyone else is doing, and you go the opposite direction.
That's good.
Most people in geographic farming, they talk to the other agents that are trying to do it, and they say, well, what are you doing? I just picked a farm, and I'm starting to send some postcards.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, then I think I'll do that. Mm-hmm. And they quit as a failure because they have no idea. And then here's what they did. They go, oh, well, postcards don't work. I tried that before.
Right. Yeah, but we don't even know.
You have no clue.
You have no idea. Right. It's good. Tyler, anything you want to add before we move on?
No, this is great. I'm taking mental notes, and I love a lot of things that you're saying. Now, you've obviously added a lot of additional flavors to it, but that's the core of what we teach as well. So it's awesome to hear from someone else saying a lot of these same things, Beatty.
Awesome. So let's talk about money, right? That's why let's talk about the money part, right? How quickly can you make money? What should be the expectations? What are the touches?
All right. So what should be the expectations normally, or what should be the expectations if you do things abnormally?
I would say for the average person, and then somebody that really wants to take it to excellence.
Okay. Average person, your expectation. Let me quote, and I believe this is Mike Ferry, I'm quoting. It's either Mike or Tom. I always get them confused. He said, if you're going to do postcard marketing, you have to do postcard marketing consistently for an extended period of time and not expect them to actually remember your name and do business with you for at least 2 or 3 years. Traditional geographic farming is you mail, and hopefully you'll get a listing somewhere in the second year, but you won't actually start to become profitable until maybe the end of the second into the third, and it takes a few years.
Right.
And the reason for this is all these things we've been talking about, plus a few more. You can fast track this though, and as I mentioned at the first of the call, when we started working with clients, most of our clients made money right off the bat, and a number of them made 6 figures within their first 12 months. I remember one lady, was really sweet. She'd been a real estate agent for 25 years. She was on the verge of pulling out because her business just wasn't going anywhere. She started with us, and in 6 months, she'd already earned $100,000 in commissions in geographic farming.
That's awesome.
It just put her back on track. And the reason is, number one, picking the right farm. Number two, having the right content that drives the sales. And number three, being proactive to follow up. So part of what you guys do, Isaiah, is to take that list and run it through data and analytics and your robot, I think you call it Ren, to identify those people that are in life changes that are most likely to be thinking about selling. Okay?
Yes.
You look at data analytics, that does the same thing. We do something on our postcards that is very similar, but a little bit more. So if you take that list that you've already developed that kind of narrows down most likely, then there's some other things you can do. We call them offers. So in marketing, if you make an offer to somebody that causes them to want to respond, then you know who's interested in the offer. And we have found that if the offers you have is information that only a seller would be interested in, and then when they respond, you track them, then you can know with even more pinpoint accuracy specifically which of those people in that broad list is thinking right now about selling. So what we started to do, and this is where the expectations comes in, is if you can make an offer, like here's one of the offers we do, okay? If you're thinking about selling, did you know there are 4 things you can do that can increase the sales price of your home by as much as $27,000 to $37,000? You know, it's a 568 word report. I put it together, go to my website and get it for free. Okay. So if you were thinking, Isaiah, about selling your home and you got an offer like that in the mail,
I'd be more likely to respond.
Yeah, you're probably going to go to the website. So when they do, the way, and this is kind of the expectation, we have some technology that tracked who goes to the website. So then as soon as they go to the website, like this lady, she would actually then the next day show up on the doorstep.
Right. And, because they got the report. So that's who she would go door knock is what you're saying.
That's right. But then we also found, sort of like what Tyler was talking earlier, you don't want to say, hey, happy 70th birthday, right? You know, oh my gosh, who are you? How do you know about me? You know, get away. So, so what we found is when you, and this is also something you can do, which even just taking the list without our response offer, but taking your list of most likely to sell, just go up and knock and just say, hey, you know, I'm BeattyCarmichael. I'm a real estate agent in the area. I'm just introducing myself to different homeowners and want to introduce myself to you. And so you build a relationship, but you know that they're most likely to thinking about selling. So you can only target them instead of everyone in that neighborhood. When you start to do that, then what happens is you get sales much faster. The most important thing in geographic farming, because it is an investment, is to cash it out quickly so that it can start to fund itself. So once you start to narrow that list through REN, identify those with life changes, through data analytics, identify those whose data says they're thinking about selling, through our URLs, identify those people who are actually requesting information and looking, then you can get listings really, really quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what's exciting too about our technology is per 100 people that are ranked hot, 25% of them are within 30 days of selling statistically.
Really?
So that's what we've got it down to. So that's across all of our data. So you can rest assured that if you're in a geo area and you got 100, you identify 100 of them, there's 25 of them in there that are very close to starting the process of selling their home. So,
wow.
You know, so that's one of the things that now if you apply effective postcards campaigns, you do some other things, you have a good calling strategy, door knocking strategy, you can really, to your point, start cashing out on your investment a lot quicker and start self-funding it. So
let me ask you a question. If you take, now this is a loaded question a little bit.
Sure.
If you take that 25%, which is a really high targeting rate, and you were to give that list of those 100 people to the average agent, how many of those listings do you think that average agent, just doing things the way they think they ought to be doing it, how many of those listings do you think they would actually pick up?
So if it depends if they actually have a good sales and marketing plan or not. You know, we'll find 2 different things. And that's why I'm huge on the educational part of it, because that's one thing to actually have the tools and the technology. It's another thing to actually convert, right? And so basically if you took the average person and they called them, we recommend on it, you know, a sequence of 6 times, 2 texts, 2 emails. Okay. And there's a spacing, and you can go to our sales and marketing plan and look at the spacing of that. If they do that, or instead of a phone call, they do some door knocking, there's no way they're not converting on a worst case scenario 10% of them. But to your point about the door knocking, based on the last guy we interviewed, he's actually one of our top clients that was on with us last week. His conversion's through the roof. If he's getting about, out of everyone he door knocks with the hot leads, he's converting almost all of them.
Yes.
If they're interested in selling, like he's converting them at a high level. So it's kind of tough to answer because it depends so much on the person that's executing those leads. So it ranges all over the place, but for the person that applies the sales and marketing strategy, if they're not converting 50% out of the ones that are ready to go now, then there's just something wrong with the process.
Can I give you some data that we've tracked on this?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you'll find that I'm real big on data and real big on measuring things because that's the only way you can really succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So, and these are coming from a number of different data points, both our clients and elsewhere. So what we have found is this. So take that list of your 25 that you know are going on the market, okay?
Yep.
If you do nothing in follow-up, you'll get none of those. Okay, so the
Zero.
data point is 0%.
Right. Yep. If you don't call, if you don't reach out, you don't door knock, you're not going to get any of them.
If you do the typical approach that most agents do in follow-up, they're going to send an email, they're going to make a phone call, they're going to put them on a postcard mailing campaign. We find that the average person gets about 10%. In fact, this actually is corroborated by a large study with the largest brokerage in Florida, and they had a whole group of agents targeting these type of leads, and that's what they averaged, 10 to 12%. Then, if you take a step further, so one of our clients developed I'll call it a pre-marketing pack for lack of a better word, but it's a package of information that if you were to think about a normal listing presentation where you go through and you explain the value that you bring to try to persuade that person to choose you, he puts this into a written package, and he would have his assistant, every time someone would respond that's possibly thinking about selling, his assistant would drop off that package with a tin of butter cookies and just a little personal note. And just by doing that extra act of dropping something off with that information, he was getting an average of about 60 to 65% conversion rate of those who went on the market choosing him. And then when you add into it the element, you do all of those and you add one more element, you actually go door knock and meet them face to face, then it went to 90 to 100% of every one of those people. And that's what you're talking about with your top client. He's getting almost everyone because what happens is he's meeting them. This is kind of the key in geographic farming. You have to engage. And there's a book that was written, I won't name it just in case in case someone may be offended by who wrote it. But it looked at a bunch of data from thousands of real estate agents and tried to say, what's the difference between various leads? And they came down with only two differentiations on the leads. One is that you had met the lead, and the other one you had not met the lead.
Absolutely. Huge difference.
Huge difference. And the ones you've met are the ones who are doing business with you. And that's why if you will actually just go door knock that list of your 100 top, you will get probably every one of those 25 who actually go on the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's an exciting opportunity for our clients, is that if they can take the strategies that we're teaching here, that you're going over right now, and then use Cole, use our ranking, their odds. And that's really what business is all about. If we're just breaking it down, we're basically increasing the odds of success, right? So the odds of success dramatically skyrocket by using these strategies, and that's the goal. That's the goal, right? So
let me show you how fast it works. I don't want to keep beating a dead horse. I hope he's not dead. But in the traditional approach, let me show you this. This is what's so powerful. In the traditional approach to geographic farming, you have to expect 2 years out before you get your first listing. When you identify who's likely to sell and you actually start to follow up with them, our average person was getting their first listing in the first month or two.
Yeah, that's strong. Huge difference.
Real strong.
Yeah, big difference. Good. So let's talk about costs, right? So I know there's a lot of people that are going to be watching this and engaging in this training. They're thinking about budget, right? They're like, hey, this sounds great, but what is this going to cost me to make sure it works effectively, right? So
Right. So there's a lot of things you can do that are low cost. Okay. Let me back up to the one most important investment in your farm that you need to do. First off, don't worry about cost. Look at only as return on investment. Okay. And one of the most important things we believe that you can do is touch them on a consistent basis with postcards. So if you've got that list, so let me give the scenario. Let's say I've got that farm of 600 homes, and then Isaiah, you've narrowed it down to the top 100 most likely to sell.
Yep.
Those 600 homes, I want to be mailing at least once a month, if not every 3 weeks. That's 18 times a month. But that list of 100, I want to be mailing them at least every 2 weeks, not every 10 days, 3 times a month.
Right.
Because you're going to invest more in those that you know are likely to going to come through, because you've got to get your name in front of them and get them to want to pick up the phone and call you. But then there are a lot of things you can do, and this is what Tyler was talking about earlier. With signage and with places, community places like a park that you can do things with. So in terms of touching, the most important thing with your farming is that you're touching them in some way, in multiple ways all the time. So we talked about door knocking. The most effective thing you can do, it just takes time. There's also something called a Facebook community page. I've got to tell you the story of one of our clients. He was targeting, so he lived in a 1,500, his name is Nelson, and he's out in California. He lived in a 1,500 home farm, and at the time he had just a couple of listings a year, and that was about it. He started with us with the postcards, and he plugged into the Facebook community page. And what was really interesting, Isaiah,
wow,
is
that's interesting. I like it.
But watch this. It gets so there are only 200 people on the Facebook community page.
Okay.
So you know what he did on the first? You know the first thing he did with that?
Invited them all.
He door knocked, had a door hanger, and promoted the Facebook community page because he knew that was going to be his strategy.
Right.
So in the first year, he made $100,000 directly from our postcards, and he made $50,000 through Facebook, because what he would do is he would start to post all of his activity in
the group.
In the canyon. And so now people started seeing him in the mail and on the Facebook community page. And it leapfrogged. Get this. This is the point I want to make on this. Okay. In 18 months, in a 1,500 home farm, he went from basically 1% or 0% of the listings. Would you like to take a guess of what it was after 18 months?
30% of the listings?
It was 22%.
Wow.
Outselling the number 2 agent by 7 times.
Wow.
Would you like to take a guess what it was 18 months later? After 3 years in that farm, when Mike or Tom Ferry, whichever one it was, said you got to postcard market for years before you get your first listing. Do you know what it was after 3 years?
I would say probably 50%.
Exactly. 50% control the market, because every time he had a listing, he touched his Facebook community page 5 times. Coming soon, just listed, open house, under contract, just sold.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And they loved it. And so the first thing, he door knocked, and he got the community page attendance up to like almost 1,200, 1,000 people. And then he used that. So that was one of the strategies. Very low cost, just high activity.
That's smart.
Another thing you can do is, as you see on the screen, is what we call a 2-for-1 coupon. Restaurants will give these things away for free. And it's another value add that you can do. You can mail it, you can door knock and give it to people. But because it's coming from you, they appreciate it.
Right. It's more personal than just getting it from some restaurant or
that's right.
Mailing or whatever it may be.
And you can target the nicer restaurants and say, hey, I really want to add value, and I went and I got these guys to give me a 2-for-1 so I can give to you. Okay. And now they appreciate it.
Awesome. And what we'll do here is I think if we have more time, maybe another segment, we can go down through all of these, but
Let's do that on another segment.
yeah, we'll do that another segment, but there's a lot of really, really strong ideas here. So thank you for providing those. It's awesome. And so let's get into the next part. So we're talking about basically, we went through the overview, regular versus, talk about, so what do you mean by regular versus a reverse sprint here? It's one thing I was looking at.
Okay, so if you look on the screen, in the blue heading, it says geographic farming and how to make real money with it.
Yeah.
That's reverse print.
Okay.
If you look at the lessons we've learned about increasing marketing results and the other information, that's regular print.
Okay.
And so what happens a lot of times is it's pretty to do things in reverse print because you can put a pretty image there, you can put colors. And so when we tested it, we actually
this is important. Yeah.
Let me share the story of how it came about.
Yeah.
So we had some cards and we wanted to make them prettier. So we went to a graphic designer and said, make our cards pretty. And as we started using them, our results plummeted.
Right.
And I said, uh-oh, what's going on? I know pretty is supposed to be pretty, but it's not working. So then we did a test. We said, well, let's take the same content on a pretty card using the reverse print, and then we use another card without reverse print, but it's the identical content. And we did it in I think it's like 8 or 10 different areas all across the country so we could get a good homogeneous split test.
Yeah.
And what we found is the regular print, so this was direct response, so we can measure things very specifically. Regular print outperformed reverse print by 850%.
Wow, that's crazy. Regular print outperformed reverse print by 850%.
That's 8.5 times more.
So why do you think that is? Like from a psychological standpoint, why do you think that is?
Yeah, so this is real important. Anytime you do anything in marketing, you have to look at what you do from the recipient's eyes and what they are accustomed to. So for example, habla español? Habla español, is that Colton?
No.
Okay, so if I speak a French, that's all I know is Spanish. I do know uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis.
Yeah.
But if I were to communicate to you in a way that you're not familiar with, then I'm not going to be as effective. And most people are more familiar reading black print on a white paper because that's how you read magazines and newspapers and websites than they are to read white print on a dark background.
Right. So, Tyler, what Beatty was talking about in all their in the tests they did with their postcards, so we're starting to get into the marketing strategy now, is the regular print versus the reverse print, 850% difference in return on regular print. So meaning like the white background with the black print is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, yes. I heard that. That's fascinating because that was the first time, like, what? But it makes, your logic makes sense, right? And, and as it has, I was an advertising major in college back in the day, so I get stuff, right? It's prettier doesn't always mean better. So, hey guys, I hate to do this, but I got to get back downstairs again.
It's all good. Thank you for joining us.
Up. Yeah. For required to wear a suit back up. And
got it.
Head downstairs. But everything that you said, I love, because that's, classes all the time. And on all our literature downstairs, I'm handing out to agents right now. It's talking about hyper-local with a multi-channel approach, right? And that's what this last 45 minutes has been all about. So I'm a nerd just loving it right now. So.
Well, Tyler, thanks for hopping on with us. And again, if we'll provide a link where if somebody wants to just work with Cole directly, we encourage you to work through us because we can help you coordinate that. But we'll provide a link later on, Tyler, in this presentation. If somebody wants to just go to Cole directly, we'll provide that. So thanks a lot for hopping on with us. And
hey, Tyler, tell Mike Ferry, BeattyCarmichael with Agent Dominator says hello and see what he does.
Yeah.
I'll do that. I'll keep you posted.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
All
right. Bye.
See you. Very cool. So let's keep going here. So we got the jumbo versus regular postcard now. Yeah. So what have you found the differences between the jumbo and the regular postcard?
It depends. By the way, when he says to Mike Ferry, hey, BeattyCarmichael with Agent Dominator says hello, you know what Mike's going to say?
What?
Who's that?
Yeah. That's hilarious. That's funny.
So, so regular versus jumbo. So every time we would work with clients, now keep in mind, most of what we were doing when we were doing the test with jumbo versus regular, most of our postcards at that time with our clients were direct
Yep.
response. We were looking for those people thinking about selling.
Yep.
And all of our clients were saying, oh, I've seen all the studies and they all say jumbo is better.
Mm-hmm.
And I never believe what people tell me. I go test it. So we tested it. And here's what we found. If you have a direct response offer, you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to get someone to respond and either call you or go to a website or something like that, that there was only, we did this all over the country. Jumbo produced 20% higher response rate in Florida and 0 increased response rate everywhere else that we tested all over the country.
What? That's wild.
Isn't
That's
that wild?
yeah.
But it makes sense. Think about this. Marketing, especially as it relates to direct response marketing, is all about what I call the reticular activator. Here's
Mm-hmm.
what the reticular activator is. Once you start thinking about selling, your mind then goes into gear saying, I need to understand all these questions before I put my home on the market. What's my home's worth? What things do I fix up? How do I get it ready? What agents? So your mind is looking very specifically for anything that can educate it. So when you get a regular size postcard versus a jumbo size, your mind is already looking, so it doesn't matter the size postcard is going to pick up. This is
Right.
something I'm looking for. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm.
Now, my wife gets Bed Bath & Beyond jumbo postcards.
Right.
She's not looking for a sale.
Mm-hmm.
And so when jumbo plays a part is in 2 areas that we've found, or this is these 2 areas that we make our assessments on.
Mm-hmm.
When you simply want to interrupt them on something that they have no interest in, that they're actively looking for, and you just want to be in their face,
Mm-hmm.
got to do something to stand out. The other time is a lot of times, and this is what we have found most effective long-term in postcard marketing, is educating people why they should choose you over someone else. And so if you're trying to educate them, then jumbo is better because it's more in their face, but it also gives you more space to
do the education. Yeah, that makes
education.
a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What do we got? Okay, so now pretty versus ugly, because all these are cost factors, really, right? So
yeah, all these are actually so they're cost factors, but pretty versus ugly doesn't increase cost at all.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Regular versus reverse print doesn't increase cost at all because your cost is printing that postcard and putting a stamp on it.
Well, some people might want to use a lot of different colors to make it more pretty, and that would increase your cost potentially, right? If the more colors you're using.
In the old offset printing days, it did.
Not as much anymore.
But now everything is digitally printed. They're short runs. They're all digital.
Right.
So whether you print full color or black and white, the cost is absolutely the same. Yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna call my printer and negotiate with them on that. No, just kidding.
Right. Hey, great. If you're going to print your own, you won't find a cheaper place than gotprint.com.
Okay. Cool.
They won't mail it for you, but they will print it and send it to you.
Print and send it.
Something. And then there are lots of places online. If you're just going to create your own postcard, I'll put a plug in about what we do. There'll be a link at the end of this. But we create everything for you and print it, and you can.
That's awesome.
And we add all this stuff that we know what works. But there are a lot of places when you go online, if you want to create your own postcard, there's no cost difference in color versus.
I love it. That's great. All right. So what do we got? What's number 5 all about here?
Well, let me talk about pretty versus ugly real quick, because we didn't really hit on that. So this came out with the ugly yellow card. Okay. Can it stand out, and will it stand out, and when does it work better? So we decided to create our ugly yellow card and then compare that against something that's more graphically pleasing. And we found that the same content on the more graphically pleasing card increased results by 250%.
Wow.
So let me see if this makes sense. By going from reverse print to regular print, I increased results 8.5 times. By going from ugly to pretty, I increased results by another 2.5 times. So when you multiply those together, your response rate of what you're getting skyrockets. So that's why this is so important.
Yeah. I think that's really important for anyone in graphics. And when we're looking postcards, web pages, stuff like that, how powerful visuals are, how powerful graphics are to increasing response rate.
They're very powerful, but only to a part. So can I give you a little marketing education on this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you have two elements in marketing. You have graphic and you have copy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The graphic designers think that the design is the most important and copy takes second place. The copywriters say copy is most important.
Yep.
You have to have a balance.
A balance of both of them. Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
And here's what we have found. Once you cross the threshold of being good enough, anything above that doesn't matter. Okay.
Right.
So in graphic, once you cross that threshold of saying it's pretty and it's professional looking, to make it over the top by spending more money with a more expensive designer,
you could end up costing yourself money. Yeah.
You could cost yourself money.
Where you want to focus on the copy.
That's right. Because the designer wants to take away copy and add more pictures. Okay?
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. Once you get to a point, then that's all that really matters.
That's strong.
Here's something else. So number 5 is serif versus sans serif. Okay. So got to get a little technical to understand this. The font that you are using on this page is what's called sans serif.
Okay.
It's straight up and down. If there's a T, it's a straight T. Serif is where it has a little curly Q at the end.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So if you look at newsprint is typically serif. If you're reading a book, most books and most magazines are serif. But if you go to website, most websites are sans serif. They take off that little curly Q.
Mm-hmm.
Here's why this is important. It goes back to what you were asking, why is reverse print versus regular print? Why does it make such a big deal? And the answer is you have to see it through the eyes of the person reading it. So the majority of real estate agents are 55 and above.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of homeowners are probably in the neighborhood about 43, 45 and above. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So who is your target audience?
Right.
If your audience is the older people, they have been accustomed to reading they've been accustomed to reading serif print.
Serif, right.
Instead of sans serif. And so a study was done back in the 1980s. So we haven't reproduced this because you need much more data than we're able to do in our client base. But the study was in the 1980s, and what it was focused on is which works best. And they found that, so this is the baby boomers market back then, that the serif produced a 500% higher comprehension rate. So they would all read the postcard or read the message, but in terms of the comprehension, by having the little serif font instead of sans serif, they actually retained 500% more.
That's crazy.
So if you're trying to persuade someone, try to educate them, you want to be writing in terms that they're going to actually comprehend.
Well, it makes sense why the person that helped me write my book recommended that. So got it. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
So all these things, slippery slope, I've got to move to an appointment. I don't have time because slippery slope is a little bit more advanced, but it talks on the psychology of writing copy that works, or if you're hiring a copywriter, making sure that they know how to write copy that works. So we'll talk about that in a minute.
That's good. That's strong.
Yeah.
So there's a lot. So all these are different factors, negative versus positive offer. So just if we could maybe like just 30 seconds on each one of these, and if that's possible.
30 seconds, but
you want to do another session?
And why?
Okay.
Right, so I can say that a positive offer increases results 8 times more than a negative offer. But what is a positive offer versus negative? And why is that? We'll have to discuss that later.
Okay.
I talked on the last time that large capital letter at the beginning of what we call our caption actually increases readership by 20%. That's what's called a drop letter.
Okay.
I think I would do a disservice if I try to zip through this.
That's good. I like that. Then I think what we'll do is we'll, for next week then, if that's all right with you, we'll pick up and we'll continue the workshop next Wednesday. and we'll talk more about taking a deeper dive into this, because again, I don't want to, the goal is for everyone to have a step-by-step roadmap. They know in and out exactly how to be successful with geo-farming, and the marketing part, we definitely don't want to rush, for sure. So why don't we, if it's okay with you, Clara too, we'll end right here, Beatty, and we'll pick back up
Okay.
in our next session.